Welcome to Category Dominators, a new series where we talk with some of the most talented founders and CEOs in the cloud ecosystem. Today, we have the pleasure of introducing the absurdly talented Yotam Segev, co-founder and CEO of Cyera, the hottest data security startup in history. Cyera's AI-powered platform is redefining how businesses discover, secure, and leverage their most valuable asset, which is data, delivering unmatched speed, precision, and innovation in the $24 billion global data security market. In this episode, we're going to cover lessons from adversity and the path to leadership in the military, the formation of a genuine business partnership and navigating the challenges of building a lasting business with a co-founder, the data problem, expanding beyond security, the importance of strategic hiring and making bold moves in M&A, and how to build a generational company. Thank you so much for joining us, Yotam. Welcome.
Thank you for everything you do for us, Andy. We wouldn't be here without you.
You know, what this is all about, as you know, is really about teaching other founders behind you. What is going on? Like, how do you do things? How do you not screw up? How do you not stand on the landmine? And I love to hear stories about, crucible moments and things that people go through and grind through. It's the harder stuff. Anything you want to highlight there is great. But I think that people also benefit from being like, who are these people? Like, where did they come from? What's their family lineage? Tell us about you, just the human.
Who? Haven't done it in a while.
I'm going to go straight there.
I'm a village boy from Israel. Grew up in a small village. The village movement in Israel is a very important movement in Israel because as it's a very young country, it's kind of like the people who went and settled in Midwest America and in the West before there was a settlement there, right? So people...
So is it kibbutz?
Not a kibbutz, a moshav, less socialist, a little more capitalist, but still, people who took their young families, stepped out into the unknown and settled new lands, started new communities. That's the background for my family.
So pretty gritty.
Pretty gritty. My father was the second son in his village, and they didn't have a road to the village. They were 8 kilometers from the nearest town, and there was one car. They had a lot of tractors, but there was one car. So when my grandmother was starting to experience the labor coming on, my grandfather ran to was actually like the head of security for the village who had the jeep, told him come quickly, and he tried to drive them to the town. I'm not sure they made it in time.
Okay, so you're this kid from this tiny little community in the middle of nowhere. Where were you? Like north of Negev, south of Tel Aviv? Where were you?
Northern Israel.
Northern Israel. So Herzliya.
The Jezreel Valley, it's called, Emek Israel.
I see this kid from middle of nowhere. How did they find you for the 8200 unit? Don't they do some kind of test when you're 14 or something?
So I was a pretty smart kid and pretty hardworking. I was very fortunate with the ecosystem that I grew up in. Despite it being very, very down to earth, it was also very enriching to me as a youngster. Got a lot of opportunities to study, to learn, to become good at physics, mathematics, computer science, of course, and also to work with people and do pretty exciting things. When I was 16-year-old, I bought myself a quad. We would go on trips for days with these things off-road, sleep out in the wilderness, come back, try to find our way back home at some point, have to deal with things that happen on the way. The tires go out, the engine goes out, something breaks, something doesn't work, you're in the middle of nowhere, it's pretty hot in Israel, and then figure it out, find a way to get back home. So that was a big part of my childhood, my teenage years, alongside a lot of passion and excitement about studies and science. Software in particularly was always my biggest passion. There was something about building in software that was super exciting for me. The fact that you can just bring something into life, right? Like sit on your computer for a few hours and birth something into life. And back in the day, it wasn't that easy to do. But all in all, that was my excitement and my background. Before the military, I did a year of volunteer work in a youth village with troubled youth at the edge of the spectrum. Stories from the newspaper about kids whose parents murdered each other in front of their eyes, and really, really tragic life stories and circumstances. So I had a year working with those kids that also gave me a lot of perspective. I think that whenever I experience adversity or challenges or difficulty. Sometimes I remember those kids, those kids were my age back then. And I remember that their choice to live. There was one girl that I remember would show up every day to breakfast at the school with a smile from ear to ear. And like you know her story, you know what she came from. You're saying, where does she find the energy, the determination to show up with a smile, to show up positive, to show up believing that she can progress, that she can learn, that she can create different circumstances for her family one day. And I think that for me, whenever I experience adversity or stress or challenges, those experiences really help me put it in the right perspective and say how fortunate I am to be experiencing stress, because we're closing a monster quarter and the numbers need to come in, and not because I'm dealing with these challenging circumstances or real life circumstances that people deal with.
God, what an incredibly inspirational person. You love people that can smile through pain authentically, that just have this emanating positivity. You have that. It's really incredible. I've seen you pissed off and you're still look like you're having fun. What's up with that? Or is that your whole family's vibe, or where'd that come from?
Oh, it's absolutely not my whole family's vibe. When my mom gets pissed off, she's pissed off. She's not having fun. But,
so you decide to go to the age 200 unit. What happens where you go, you know what? I think I can go become a CEO. I've met, as you know, maybe, 200 of these people.
I think for me, the founding experience was actually more Talpiot than 8200. Talpiot is a very unique program in the Israeli military. It's essentially Israel's technological leadership academy.
Yeah.
I made it into the program and felt like a complete, imposter. I remember in my first year, we had a company, a unit trip, and I was walking with the psychologist that was responsible for the screening process. And I was trying to understand the intricacies, the details of the screening process to figure out how I got in, right? How that ever happened. And he's like, no. Only the top 200 passed to that stage. And I'm like, so how did I pass? I don't understand. I can understand how I got good grades on other stuff that we did, but how did I pass and make it in? I still don't always figure that out.
Yeah, this is after the 82.
Before I got to 8200.
Interesting.
Talpiot is a national program in Israel that was started after the Yom Kippur War. In the Yom Kippur War, we lost a lot of people, including my father's uncle, in the armored corps, because the Egyptians had night vision in their tanks and we didn't. And when you're fighting at night and you can't see, that's a horrible situation to be in. And two of the professors in the Hebrew University that were professors for physics and chemistry and fought in that war said, never again. We're never going to be in a place where we're technologically inferior to the enemy, to the opponent. We're just too small a country. We just can't afford that. We lose. And Talpiot was started out of that, and it was a national program for scientific and technological excellence. And its purpose was to make sure that the IDF always has the technological advantage and has the right technological leaders that are able to push that advantage over our many enemies. So Talpiot was born out of that experience. It's a very, very unique program. And the essence of the program is to have a small group of exceptional leaders that are trained to challenge the status quo. The military is all about discipline and obedience and structure, but then you want to have some of these rebels that think that, maybe the way things are done isn't the way they should be done. Right? Maybe there's a different way things should be done, or maybe if we don't change something about the way we do things, we're not gonna win. And that was the essence of Talpiot. It was really imbued in us for more than 3 years, for 3.5 years in the program. And I was bottom of the class in terms of academics. I was scratching and clawing my way to stay in and not get kicked out on the physics and the mathematics, which weren't my strongest suit. And every time we went out of the program, we went to paratroopers training, I was top of the class. We went to officers training, I was top of the class. But in the class, I was scratching at the bottom and struggling to hold on. When I got to 8200, it really changed, because Talpiot was very, very, very academic. The academic aspects took a huge part of it, the academic studies, the excellence in that. And I wasn't there, right? Like I was good, but I wasn't there. I wasn't good compared to those guys. Some of them are my co-founder today, our VP engineering today, the stronger academics in the class.
Yeah, but you threw yourself into, at a very young age, a rigorous program. Was that because you knew early on you wanted to lead and you wanted the right to lead by getting some world-class training early on? Is that what the thought process was?
No doubt.
You would have been like 22, 23?
When we started, I was 20. Tamar, my co-founder, was 17 when we started.
That's so awesome.
That was a very, I would say, forming experience going through the program. And once we completed the training, which was 3.5 years, and we got posted in 8200 in cyber, it became about doing and not about studying. I felt like I was like a fish in water. You know, it was such a pleasure to work, to be able to create, again, use your skills in that ecosystem of cyber, which is fascinating to me to this day. And very quickly, I got promoted into team leader, into a department manager, and grew within 8200 to a pretty significant leadership role.
I can't tell me how many founders where I meet these people and I'm like, go figure some shit out. Get your ass kicked. Try to be a Spartan warrior somehow, which is difficult and rigorous. And you feel like maybe, the imposter syndrome or whatever's going on. But, like the humility inherent in people that seek out that kind of training, I got a lot of time for people like that.
And that was exactly the idea of Talpiot, by the way. They made us study physics at a very extended level. And I did not want to study physics at a very extended level. But, you go back and you see the situations we're in today in Cyera, and the physics serves me as much, if not more, than the computer science. I was very passionate about software, but the mindset, the canonic studies, studying mathematics, physics, really diving deep on these canonic topics, are the most amazing foundation we could have gotten for many of the challenges we're in today.
So you've known Tamar forever. You guys have like a wonderful friendship and partnership. And he's the best human. And I love that guy. He's such a sweetheart. And he's brilliant. So you're like this kid, 20 years old. He's 17. You meet him here. What happened?
We didn't even know what business was back then. We didn't even know how to spell business. What are you talking about? We were young. We wanted to serve in the military. We wanted to protect our country. We wanted to learn. We wanted to play soccer. It was a different environment, different ecosystem. We were in a different planet than where we are today. But I think, Tamar was always a fighter, right? Like he was always super, super smart, and he was always a fighter. And I worked with him throughout all of our years, right? From the beginning. And it was always amazing to see him change and grow over the years from where we started. And I'm sure that he feels the same about me, right? We've known each other since we were very, very young. I just got a picture from a friend from 15 years ago. We were traveling together, and we were both very skinny.
But seriously, what did you guys see in each other that made you such a successful pair? It's ridiculous how functional you two are.
My strongest experience with Tamar, we were always close, and we always enjoyed each other a lot. And we even worked in the same areas for most of our years in 8200. But in the last position at 8200, I managed to convince him to join me in a kind of new innovative unit that we started within 8200. And he was think about it, he was in the special forces of 8200, where it's the hardest stuff, it's the most deep tech, it's the smartest people, but it's also very well resourced, very well organized. They have a lot of heritage. They know what they're doing. And I was Tamar, you already learned everything they can teach you over there, right? You already learned that place. Okay, so you'll move up the ranks and you'll be a bigger commander of the same stuff. Who cares? You're not gonna learn that much from it. Come, let's do something else, something a little different. And it was pretty lucky that he joined. And when we got to work together in that aspect and really build a new unit within 8200 from scratch, that's when I fell in love with him as a business partner. Because on the one hand, we had so much in common, so much trust in each other, so much faith in our determination to progress the goal. I've never felt with Tamar, even when we were fighting over new engineers coming into the unit, who's going to get them, I've never felt like it was politics. I felt like it was a question of what's best for the outcome. Right? We got to figure out what's going to be best for the outcome. And we were fighting back then for those engineers.
Was there some moment in 8200 where you guys no, the world's shifting so that the enabling X, Y, and Z will lead to a actual worthwhile category? Because as you know, data security was a bunch of false starts for a very long time.
No, that was definitely not the 8200. We had our own experiences trying to protect the stuff that we were doing back then and understanding that it's going to look very different in this new world of cloud and SaaS and let's call it cloud services. And that was part of the why now that led us to dive deep on this subject with Cyera and to go into it. But we never had an idea. We listened to the customers. What our idea was to talk to the customers and hear what they need us to build and what they need us to execute on and why, and dive deep on that. We never had a revelation. We never figured it out and brought it into life. For us, it was very much led by the CISOs, led by the enterprise security teams that we were very fortunate to talk to. And we're very, grateful that people spent time with us when we were two founders, $5 million of funding and a lot of drive. Right? Without that, Cyera would never be where it is today.
There's one of my questions was like, okay, so you decide to start a company. You have like YL, you got all these firms have offices in Tel Aviv. It seems to me that, yay, they're great too, but Gilly's got something special going. And was it an easy decision to be like, hey, Gilly and Lior have this really cool machine. I'm going to go stick myself into this Y Combinator style machine, and we're going to go figure out an idea there. Is that what happened?
So the machine wasn't as well articulated and well shaped as it is today. There were some early signs of excellence in terms of the machine, but it was a very new machine. But I think the personal interaction with Gilly and Lior was, for us, very clear. Right? Like there was a click. We knew that these people, they're after the same things that we're after. They want to build something that we'll be proud that we built, and they're willing to put in the effort, to put in the work to do that.
I am so grateful for them. Maybe every single day of my life, maybe even on weekends.
I think there's something in that sounds so fundamental that it's sometimes overlooked. And that is that the determination to build something legendary, to build something that would be remembered, to build something that would matter, to build something that's important to the customers, to the market, to the employees, to the shareholders. I think that determination and commitment to that is taken for granted, and oftentimes is actually not there, right? And that's both for the VCs and the founders. Not many people are really committed to building something
Together.
Yeah, and making something into reality that wasn't there before. And I think that for us, that was super, super important to really find those partners that we believe as much as we believe.
Customers will tell founders anything. Yeah, go build me this. I'm going to pay for it. And then you screw around for 3 years and then like, nah, build 10 more things and maybe I'll pay for it. And then it's just ridiculous. I'm curious whether they were impactful on really shaping the idea that helped you break away from this absurdly crowded, bullshit, noisy insanity and then powered you through. Was that impactful, that early customer interaction?
It cannot be overstated how impactful it was, but it was impactful because CyberStarts, Lior and Gilly taught us how to get the value from those meetings. And that was all about, in the first iteration, it was all about identifying the pain. And identifying the pain is not going to a CISO saying, oh, Mr. CISO, what do you think about data security? It's like, oh, I think it's very important. Like, it's a very big topic for me. It's like, okay, you want something in data security. Like, no, it was about diving deep into the pain, into what they're doing about the pain today. Why what they're doing today is not enough. Why the existing solutions are not getting them to where they want to be. What's changing in the landscape that is going to affect how this program looks like for them and where it's going to be. What does Nirvana look like for them, and why can't they believe that where they are today is gonna go there? And it was diving deep into the pain. I'll give you an example, right? Like, okay, Mr. CISO, Fortune 100 company with $300 million annual budget. If it's so important to you, what are you doing about it today? If the answer is nothing or very little, then it's not that important. Something's very important. I've got resources. I'm going to do something about it.
Yeah, at least do it yourself until something comes along that's worth buying.
And if the answer is, I've got a team of engineers that are manually trying to go database by database,
Correct.
application by application, and figure out what data we have in there. But whenever they do that, it takes them 6 months to do it. And then the results are out of date already. And the regulators, then you've got something. Then you're touching pain.
Your advice to younger founders would be going deeper into customer pain versus like just taking the surface all the stuff and be like, oh, that's cool. That's signal. And it's not noise. It's signal. I'm going to go run with that. I see a lot of founders like get out of the gates really fast. but they spread themselves really thinly. They build a bunch of sales team over capacity. They touch a bunch of people and they kind of get a 10K ASP, a 50K, maybe 100K, and then start thinking they have a real business.
What's important is to identify a bloody pain.
Yeah.
If there's real pain, then there's blood on the floor. Somebody got cut, right? Like, and if you can't find the blood, there's no cut.
You didn't seem like in the beginning you were in any huge hurry to go get a bunch of revenue and get a bunch of logos. And that's the kiss of death to me.
So held back, right? Like the competitors, everybody started other companies in the space.
Yeah.
They were launching websites. They were doing partnerships with AWS.
But you were kind of patient. You guys seemed like you were like patient, studying everything, going deeper with the customer pain, and then all of a sudden you blast out of the can and smoked everybody.
You're bringing me back to some of the hardest moments, right? Like I remember we were in this process of discovery. We were already going through it for 6 months. No website, nothing out there, no decision on what we're building. And I called.
And it seemed like the industry was going to leave the marina without you.
We were going to be left behind. And I called Gilly and I tell him, Gilly, I think this DSPM thing is real. Like the customers are on it. They really need this. It really hurts. Like he's like, Yotam, you're the CEO. You do whatever you want. But if I was going to dedicate the next 20 years of my life to this problem, I'd check a bit more before I jump in the pool. That's what I would do. But you do whatever you want. Like, and I remember that phone call and I was like, okay, we'll check a bit more. We checked a bit more and we committed. But we committed to a very precise pain description. It all started with that need to inventory sensitive data. And we had a very clear understanding, not that data security in general is a problem. Of course it's a problem. Of course it's a challenge. But that the biggest gap, the biggest unanswered gap that is foundationally making this not work for enterprises is that they don't have an inventory. They don't even know what they're trying to protect. And to this day, when I'm talking to even Fortune 10 organizations, I'm asking them, how much data do you have? They don't know. How much sensitive data do you have? They don't know. And where does that sensitive data live? They don't know. And that is the reason that Cyera is accelerating in the market, because the product market fit is built around a real important bloody pain point.
But that pain point transcends security, does it not?
It transcends security.
I mean, there are people, there's one company that you probably know, we don't want to name it today. It's a gigantic decacorn kind of company. Doing $1 billion in revenue, A++ superstar board. And all this company does has a bunch of people in the Philippines like tagging and labeling data, because companies just don't know how the F to do it. And there's very few companies that actually do that automatically. So I've always seen you guys as like Act 1 was security, Act 2 was fix the data problem.
When we look at the path today, Horizon 1 is to become that data security company, to become the leader, the most important company in data security, supporting our customers. Act 2, Horizon 2, is to take that core technology, which is the best sensor for data in the world, and to make that sensor, repackage its outcomes for all the different stakeholders in the enterprise, the chief data officer, the chief AI officer, the chief privacy officer, the chief legal officer for e-discovery, the CIO, the CTO, and so many others. And that's the potential to build not just a huge cybersecurity company here, but to build a huge enterprise software company here.
Every time people try to bucket you guys in DSPM and still do, I kind of laugh. I'm like, wait, you're missing the point.
Starting with security is one of our biggest advantages for 2 reasons. First of all, CISOs have a fire under their butt.
Right.
They're always uncomfortable, and thus they're much more prone to innovation.
Right.
They never feel comfortable. They know they have gaps. They know those gaps can hurt them, can hurt the organizations. And that's why they would take a call. They would listen to the new thing where many other enterprise leaders might not. And that is a really, really great place for us to come and land and start our work within the enterprise. The other thing is that when you think about deploying and implementing these tools, these technologies at scale in the enterprise, the CISO is an amazing partner. They know how to roll out technology in the enterprise in a broad way. They know how to get their CrowdStrike to every endpoint, how to get their Zscaler to every transaction in the network. And it allows us not just to sell, but to actually go, deploy, implement, get ingrained in the organization, and then surface up more and more value to more stakeholders.
You usually don't get Leone to get on a Series A board. I mean, it's hard. He's in a couple. How'd you go straight to him and get your Series A done? It seemed like it happened pretty fast. All of a sudden, he's like on the board, but not just on the board, but like really engaged and cares.
The process we had in the A-round with Doug and Bogomil was one of the toughest processes. It was the boot camp of venture capital for us because, Doug's got an ego. Like he deserves to have an ego at his place.
I'd say so,
And he
yeah.
wasn't willing to bring this to the investment committee and get shut down. So we had to make sure that this is bulletproof. And his way of doing that was to spend 25 hours with us, with every partner at Sequoia, every investor at Sequoia that knows anything about enterprise software and cyber and data, and take them down each individually. So over a weekend, we spent 25 hours on the Zoom. It was COVID times. It was all on Zoom from Tel Aviv. It was the middle of the night in Tel Aviv, but we ran through every person at Sequoia one by one, and he got the thumbs up from another one, 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 the thumbs up from another one. And then finally, when we got to the investment committee, right, like everybody in the audience was already bought in. But it was some grueling sessions. You know, we were very young, you know, to be able to get on 25 calls like this with some of the most prominent people, most prominent investors in the world, one after the other, and knock it out of the park every time. I think that was his test, but that was also his way to make sure that that if he brings it to the investment committee, then he's gonna get everybody's buy-in as well.
So early on, I remember you're like, man, I'm kind of grinding in sales. Got a good guy, but I don't think this is the person. And so I need someone and I need them yesterday. And a lot of founders go, okay, well, I'll screw around for 6 months and shop and talk to 85,000 people. You were like, no, let's just talk to 3 and go get it done. Next thing you know, you vector in on Steve. Steve wasn't either an early stage classical like 0 to 20 person or 0 to 30, and he wasn't a big company or regional person ascending into the whatever CRO, and you weren't ready for a Dolly or a Mike. So like you just kind of jammed in and vectored in on Steve, who was a relative unknown. And, you know, he's now this like star. How were you thinking about that hire, and what do you attribute to his extraordinary success? Because you're quick to give credit to other people and aren't one of those founders that because, oh, it was just the product.
There were a few things that made me make the decision back then. Obviously, I've learned a lot in the 2.5 years that we've been running and gunning together since. But the things that really made me make the decision back then, the first one was his personal story and his hunger. He was hungry. He was hungry like a lion that hasn't eaten for a year. And, you know, that hunger emanated from him in every interaction. And every time I challenged him on that, what is this for you? Right? Like, what would this mean for you? What are you here to accomplish? I was always like, you know, blown away by the level of ambition and the level of hunger and the understanding that it's going to take everything he's got. Right? Like like, you know, some people are very ambitious, just not willing to put in the work. Like this was a man who respected hard work, cherished hard work, and I knew he wanted the world. And that was the first thing that, you know, really got me. The second thing were the references. I think I did over 25 references on Steve with everybody he ever worked with, managed him, he managed them, partners, everything and everyone. And, you know, you gotta have the flexibility to kind of weed out the stories, right? Like, where did things break? Where did things fall apart? What was the last time you guys raised your voice on each other? What was it about? How did it end? Like, you're gonna be able to start to find a little bit of the color, a little bit of the spice. And, you know, the picture I got was super consistent of who he is as a man, who he is as a leader, who he is as a sales person, and, you know, what drives him, how he treats his people, how he treats the people around him. And the last thing that, you know, I think I felt it back then, but today I think is actually what I attribute his success to the most is his growth mindset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Steve is open to feedback and criticism and mutual learning, and he gives me more shit than anybody else, right? Like, and I think that that's one of his greatest characteristics is his commitment to becoming better all the time.
Okay, here's the thing. I noticed that you guys have a vibe there, like a fun vibe, but you're also a bunch of savages. And, you know, all these people I know that we know in common and work with, they're like, oh man, Yotam's tough to work for. But they walk through fire for you. That's a hard leadership balancing act for any founder, or any CEO. How do you keep it hot and keep it fun at the same time? Like, that's really hard.
I think the first thing that like I always tell the people, we take the business very seriously, but not ourselves.
Oh, I love that.
It's very easy, you know, to confuse building a great company, delivering value to customers, being responsible for customers' data and protecting that data. You know, it's very easy to confuse that with taking yourself too seriously.
Don't take yourself so seriously, but take the business very seriously. That's really wise thinking. This is such a great, clean.
You know, the other thing, and this is a narrative that I I really cherish in my personal life. But I think that sometimes people confuse ambition with the path to happiness. And like, for me, I don't see a lot of alignment between the two. I don't think I'm going to be happier in the future if Cyera is going to be a bigger company, a more important company. I don't think that's going to make me happier. I think happiness is a state of mind. It's about the people you're with. It's about how you take your day, how you choose
Right
to
now.
experience, and it's today.
Yeah, it's
Right?
today.
And being happy and choosing to be happy doesn't mean you can't be very ambitious and want to build amazing things in the world and want to have an impact and want to change things. But I think that sometimes people, kind of hinge their happiness on something happening. If I achieve this, or if I get there, or we make that, then I'll be happy. And the reality is that, whatever hill you conquered, there's always a bigger hill after it. So, that never works. You just got to decide that, you want to live the life you want to live. I want to live this life. I want to build Cyera. I want to work with the people that I get to work with. I want to work with our amazing customers. I want to work with our amazing partners. I want to make friends all over the world. I want to get to know people. I want to help them solve very, very, very difficult problems. I also want Cyera to succeed in a very strong way. But my happiness is not hinged on that.
God, that's incredible. Okay, another one. You don't have a dramatic board and you have these gigantic personalities on it. I mean, like, you've got this cast of characters on your board that are stratospherically smart. I detect zero board drama. That's hard to do when you have that much talent on a board with those personalities and still keeping it a no drama thing where it's constructive. That's super, super hard too.
I think in general with the board, I want to be surrounded by people that I admire, people that I look up to, and people that challenge me.
Yeah.
Right. I want to sharpen my knife against the best of the best. And I'm continuously trying to bring those people in and have them involved and have them push the limits on what we believe we can do and what we are doing. At the same time, the board is an oversight body. Like, they have one button to press, fire Yotam. And that's not a very attractive button to press. So, you have to take everything that they consult, advise you. You have to take it into consideration. You have to really open up your mind to think about things in a different way, to find the gaps in your plan and in the way you think about the market. And I welcome that. But at the end of the day, the board is not responsible. I'm responsible. Right? Like, I'm leading the company. Tamar is leading the company. We need to make this happen. Our executive team needs to make this happen. And if we don't make it happen, the board will be okay. They'll continue on with their lives and there are many other investments. Right? Like, it's our company that we have to turn into what it has to become. And I want the best there. But it's also important to remember that they're not operationally leading the company. That's us.
You did something totally crazy. I don't think I've ever seen anybody do a 9-figure M&A at like 50 million ARR or even like approaching 50. That was an unorthodox move, and it's like a parallel category. Even though your fundamental purpose is broader than security, you already have a platform play, and yet you went and bought Trail. I wanted to hear about how that story unfolded.
I'll touch first of all on the timing. I think that, and this is maybe one of the toughest messages to actually digest for founders and for VCs and for everybody. But in the words of Bob Dylan, the times, they are changing. Right? Like, whatever worked a decade ago probably is not going to work today. And if you want to build a great enterprise software company today, you have to set your eyes on the future, and you have to set your eyes on where the puck is going, and you have to see and understand the reality in the market today. We live in a winner-take-all market in every aspect today in the world. There's companies like Amazon that dominate e-commerce, retail. There's companies like Apple and Google and Microsoft and Nvidia. Like, that's the market dynamic is a winner-take-all market. And you either have to become a large, growing, significant player, or you're going to get swallowed up. Right? Like, there's no lack of startups, there's no lack of VCs, there's no lack of innovation, spurting up. What is happening to most of these companies? They're never managing to amass and maintain escape velocity. In order to do that, you have to generate an amount of energy that is uncomprehendable. Right? Like, there's a reason that not many companies are managing to do it. That energy is revenue, it's product, it's people, it's customer awareness, it's market awareness, it's a lot of things that have to happen, that have to come together to really launch a company into outer space. So when I look at what made us decide to make that acquisition at the stage that we were in, it was understanding that in the world today, you're either moving faster than everybody else or you're getting left behind.
So many big companies will buy a company for $150 million and it'll distract the shit out of them, and then asset will die on the vine. It seems like these guys are thriving.
Yeah, and we were very lucky. We found, we didn't find, the reason we did it is because we knew them, but we knew what we were buying with this team. These are, three founders that we've known since 2011, that we grew up with in Talpiot together. We saw them throughout the years, what they did in the different places that they, worked at in the military, and their impact, what they did after the military. And we knew the people, and we knew that there's a perfect cultural fit. And we also knew that these people, what they have today in terms of their company, it's just the beginning. It's an amazing beginning, but it's just the beginning. And, together with Cyera, what they'll be able to accomplish in 4 years is so dramatic that it was absolutely worth the price to us.
I also thought it was interesting that you guys thought about yourselves as parallel to, as opposed to disruptive of, a gigantic installed base where everybody's got it, Veritas. That was really smart to think about how can we coexist with a high-paying installed base. But you had to go and convince these people to not go their own path.
I think that, if there's one thing I've learned about deal making in the past 4 years, is that it has to be a win-win. You need to create a situation where they win. And that's exactly what we did. We gave them a win, both in being able to protect themselves from downside in a very meaningful way, and also maintaining a very significant upside with Cyera. And they believed in the company. They believed in what we were doing. They saw us in the market through the customer's eyes, the appreciation that the customers had for what we were doing already and what they believed we'll be able to do in the future. And they believed that the company will go. And in essence, when we did the deal, Cyera was $1.4 billion. And, very shortly after, Cyera got a $3 billion valuation, and their stake in Cyera doubled. And, let's see what the future brings.
Well, it's interesting because, you yourself, I know there's been a bunch of M&A interest and a bunch of people are wanting you. And if you're smart, anybody that has a 3-digit IQ would want to buy Cyera pretty much any price just because of how transcendental, and it gets them out of just the security, pigeonhole. And you've resisted that. You seem hell-bent on building a generational company on your own, and I respect the shit out of it. There's a lot of people, as you know, that are first-time founders that kind of go, well, I'm just going to take the quick buck. I'll make 50, 60 million, and I'll just kind of go run out the clock, and I'll go do my second company. And there's no shame to that at all. We know those people, and they're lovely. But you were like, no, I'm going all in. But you're not driven by money.
Look, I think, the world is a volatile place. Many things can happen. Many things can change. And, being independent is, first of all, being self-sufficient. Right? Like, for me, I would go back to the personal place. As a third-generation Holocaust survivor, it's very hard to build a company with the narrative of, I hope somebody picks it up. Because that doesn't depend on me, right? Like, it doesn't depend on my team, on our people, on how we execute, on how we do. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't happen, maybe, who knows? And I'd much rather be dependent on our team, on our accomplishments, on our capabilities than anything else. So fundamentally, that's our mentality. Let's strike our own path. Let's write our own history. Let's write our own futures. And, at the same time, I think that we're having a ball. We're having a blast. I think we're making an impact. And, we're enjoying what we're doing. And we're making sure to continue to enjoy what we're doing. Right? Like, it's intense, it's demanding, it takes a lot out of you. But it's also very, very fulfilling and exciting and, super privileged to have an opportunity to lead this company, and I enjoy it.
You're looking ahead, being like, okay, we can get to hundreds of millions, probably $500 million, without a whole lot of imagination on what we're doing. 2-3 products, then we move out of security, do some other things, data classification, DLP. But when you think about like the big thing where you become, this giant public company worth hundreds of billions of dollars, you become a ServiceNow or an Oracle, something like that, where it's like a, institution. Well, how do you think about that? Like, how do you think about, okay, we will be a portfolio and we will be dominating? Is there a business model that you're aspiring to? Or what do you think about when you go, I have to architect the company to be not just a cottage or a house or a mansion. It's going to be a giant freedom tower and it's going to be indestructible. What are you thinking about there?
For us, it's all about the data, right? If you think about that asset, that weird, intangible, fluid asset, data has never been managed in the enterprise. That's the reality. It's now in this generation, it's being up-leveled to a first-class citizen, and enterprises don't know how to do it. They're piecemealing together technologies and processes and approaches, but it's not sturdy at all. And I think that the value of that is almost endless, right? Like being able to manage, control, monitor data across all of the enterprise stack and enabling the enterprise to get the full value out of the data they have and the data they're creating and collecting. I think that is going to be a massive, massive company. And it's a company that sits on top of the different warehouses, the data lakes, the cloud providers, the on-prem filers and technologies.
You're upstream. I mean, you're upstream of all these guys.
But I think that is the huge value proposition that, we need to drive towards and become the source of truth for data and for how to monetize and leverage data in the organization.
And that's what's keeping you so passionate, because, sometimes you can get tired or burned out and you got two little tiny kids and, you've got all this stuff in life and you don't seem to be slowing down. You seem to almost be accelerating. And so is that what's keeping you passionate? Just you believe in your soul. You are on the path to building a generational company.
Absolutely. And the customers, at the end of the day, it's all about, we serve the customers. And seeing that it matters to the customers, that it makes an impact for them, that it helps them succeed, like that's the best feeling in the world. Right? Like you can build software all day, but if you never ship it and people don't use it and they don't get value from it, then it's a paper exercise. The exciting thing is to see some of the biggest enterprises in the planet looking at Cyera as a strategic partner, investing in us, working with us, growing with us, believing that we can cater to more and more use cases and needs that they have and really solve some of the toughest challenges they're dealing with.
As you know, I'm married to a Jewish woman. About the Jewish sort of ethos or mindset, it always seemed to me to be extremely logical. But that's just sort of my perspective. That's what I love about it. And there's this aspiration to excellence in everything they do, whether it's playing cello or piano or building companies. What about the Jewish mindset? Do you think other Hindi or Muslim or Christian or whatever, non-denominational, could they learn from how Jews think or operate, what they value, just as founders and business leaders? I'm curious if you have any insight there.
So maybe I'll talk about one tradition that, last week we celebrated Passover, which is my favorite holiday. In Passover, there's a song, Ma Nishtana, what is different tonight? From all the other nights, that is about recognizing the symbols of the holiday and the unique moment that is that celebration and holiday. And the tradition is that the youngest child in the family stands up on the chair and sings the song to all of the adults. And there's many traditions in Passover that are all about empowering the youngest members of the tribe, in a sense, the upcomers, the young ones, the children, giving them the opportunity to be on stage in front of all of the adults, in front of the entire family, and they're the center of focus, right? And they're the center of attention, and what they have to say, their song, their reading from the Haggadah, which is the storybook for the holiday, is what everybody is listening to. And I think that's a very representative aspect of what I find amazing about the Jewish culture and the Jewish mindset, is to really, give everyone a voice. Even the youngest child in the family that is, can barely speak or has to practice in order to learn the words of the song. Now it's their show, and everybody gives them the full stage and the full attention to really be the one that everybody looks to as the leader in that instant.
There was this knock on the millennials, for example, they all got these ribbons for just showing up for practice. And there were a bunch of shitty things that Gen Xers and boomers were talking about. 99% of them were false, but there's this temptation for people that are celebrating youngsters, that the youngsters going to end up just feeling entitled or they're the center of the universe. And yet that doesn't seem to occur in that culture. So you've somehow struck a balance between giving them a voice, but not letting them believe that voice needs to be the dominant voice. That's hard. That's a hard balance.
If we only knew.
Sir, I salute you. You are such a delight to work with. I would literally sweep the floor for you. You know that. I hope I'm in business with you forever. I am truly blessed. I think any founder who listens to you is going to learn a ton, and I just really appreciate you sharing all this wisdom and advice with people, and it's so authentic.
Thank you, Andy. And I appreciate you and Artisanal Talent enormously. I think you've been incredible partners for us, and you've taught me and us so much about great go-to-market leadership and beyond that.